Hello, world. This is Adrian Hackney, and welcome to Not Your Average Boss podcast. On today's show, I have a very special guest, one of my brothers. We go way back. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to veteran affairs and providing insight when it comes to transitioning from the military to the civilian world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Scott Batista. Hey, how you doing, bro?
Hey, what's going on, man? What's up, world? How you doing, bro?
Hey, doing well, man. Good to see you, man. Just staying focused out here, man. I appreciate you being on the show, man. I'm honored to have you on the show, talking about veteran affairs, and the show's called Calling All Veterans. So it's definitely a show that's catered towards providing insight and education on the VA. We're not, credited by the VA or chartered by them, but we are veterans who have went through the process of filing claims and successfully won claims and things like that. So we just want to share our hearts and share some insight on that. But yeah, man, tell the people what you've been up to and kind of give us some of your background when it comes to your work history and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Once again, my name is Scott Batista. I actually been with the federal government for probably just about 19 years now. Had a brief stint in government service where I took some time off to kind of focus on my health. But I've been with the post office for about 10 years. Transition, of course, my military time. I spent 4 years in the United States Army, and then I went over to Social Security for a brief stint, and I am now at the Department of Veterans Affairs, VBA. I say that emphasize VBA because the VA is broken down into three different entities: health, which is the VHA, medical; VBA, which is education, voc rehab, and comp and pen; and then, of course, the cemetery, the burial, which is a national cemetery portion. So I work for the VBA part, but I got a little bit of knowledge in all of them, because for the VBA, our number is the main number that everybody knows, and we kind of direct people from there. But originally from Brooklyn, New York. My wife liked to say by way of VA. Spent my formative years in New York, and then kind of like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I was getting in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And they sent me down to a city called Lynchburg, Virginia, where I wound up graduating high school and then joined the military and never looked back. Married to my wife, just hit 20 years December 1st. My wife is also a veteran with the United States Army. We did meet in the military in Fort Lee, Virginia, way back in the day. And we have 3 children. I have my oldest son, David, which is not by my wife, but his mom is a veteran as well. He is going to be 20 in March. I have my daughter who graduates this year, who's going to be 18 next month. And then I have my youngest child and youngest son, Scott Jr., my daughter, Sanaya, my youngest son, Scott Jr., who's 16. He'll graduate high school at 17 next year. So, blessed man, just a blessed individual. When I think about where I came from and the things that I've seen, been a part of, man, I'm truly a blessed person, man. I'm also a minister of the gospel at my local assembly, Faith Mission Ministries, here where I reside in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Hey, man, that's awesome, man. And it's a beautiful thing, man, as far as when it comes to the growth track and the history, man. And like I said, you got beautiful family, man. I know you guys for years.
I appreciate that.
Awesome family, man. And it's always a blessing to see people grow and families grow closer ultimately to God and then to each other, and then being business minded and preparing them for the business world and transitioning to the business world, man. It's always great to hear people who are doing that, because it's so important to prepare them, man. But like you said, you were uprooted and you went into the military. What do you think was one of your choices or behind that? Like, what was the driving factor? Like, at that point in time in your life, what made you decide to go into the military?
That's a very good question. It definitely wasn't patriotic or patriotism, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
It was more so just tired of living the life I was living. So many of you probably know the story, but for me, I grew up very fast. My parents sent me down to Virginia, where I really didn't have, it really wasn't a structure. It definitely wasn't a Philip Banks type thing where I went to a better family. It was a better location, but I quickly took my New York mentality and ran the streets of Virginia. And I was living with a family that really wasn't my family. It was my half brother, who I love dearly, but it was his family. And so I didn't really have somebody to really monitor me as my parents would have if I was living in New York. So I just went buck wild, man. I was just this insecure young man who was looking for love in all the wrong places. So I found that in sex. I found it in stealing and robbing and doing drugs. And so all those things, and I may read other things, but all those things led me quickly, especially after high school. I just kept getting in trouble with the law, little this, here, there, got into bad relationships, wound up getting stabbed, gun pulled out on me at gunpoint, and just different things until I finally just said one day, I'm going to join the military. It was something that was kind of seeded, obviously, in high school, recruiters, things like that. My family said, hey, you need to do something with your life. And so what I did was, I'm going to go visit my mother, who had moved out of New York, remarried, moved to North Carolina. I said, I'll go visit her for a while, kind of get myself together. I went, but I still had court dates. And once I cleared the warrants, the court dates, and paid the fines, then I could join the military. And that's what I did, man. And I just never looked back. Like I said, it was nothing I wanted to do, but it wound up being probably one of the best decisions of my life.
Hey, man, that's powerful, man. And that's real relatable, and I'm finding that a lot of veterans have similar stories to where, it's not that we were really patriotic, and we may find out throughout our tour in the military, but even after, sometimes like, hey, I've been through a lot, still not patriotic like that because of what I've been through and what I've seen on the inside, right? And my brother from VA, I know that's why we clicked so quick, man, from Virginia, so in bad news, area in Virginia, but we came from environments to where we got caught up in the street life, and I was the same way, man. I was like, it was either locked up or dead, so I need to make a choice, and it was the military. That was the only way I could see myself starting my life and making something of myself. I always wanted to make my parents proud, and the path I was going down, it wasn't happening, man. And my pops, we had a stern talk with me. It was like, you gotta have to get up out of here, out of this house, because you causing too many issues. And I'm like, that was my pivotal come to Jesus moment, because I was like, you know what, my dad's right. I need to get myself together and do something positive, man. But so that's awesome, man. When you look at your military career, what was the hardest thing about, far as, when you were in the military and also leaving the military after that?
I think the hardest thing probably for me was not trusting nobody. I felt like I was way away from New York, Virginia, and my family, and I just graduated at 17, joined the military, I think, in 2020, and I just wasn't secure. I just wasn't the secure child to be on my own. I just was always looking for, didn't trust people, but I felt like I had to gravitate to a person to feel like I was going to make it. I think somewhere in childhood, I came from a family, or my mom, who's very strong-willed, my parents strong-willed, but my mom, being that she was the main one raising me, she was very assertive and can be a bit dictative. And what I learned that is, it can cause you not to think for yourself. And when a person, or very critical of her parenting and my upbringing, and when you overly criticize a person in childhood, it can cause them to become insecure when they go to make choices. So I realized that as I got older, that joining the military, in the beginning, while I had so much potential and talent, I would overly compensate for the insecurity that I had. I had to beat you and really show you that I could, because I made everything competitive, because it wasn't really me competing with you. It was really trying to prove to myself that I could. So right off the bat, I was dusting people. I was arguing. I was getting in fights in basic training. I became the senior road guard. If you're in the Army, the senior road guard was like the number one runner, leader for the people who wore the vest to lead the troops when it was time to run and do PT. You know, I had to be everything to every. Of course, you know, I was definitely with the ladies and all that, but it was all about the clout and all I could get, because it was really a form of insecurity for me, and those things made me feel secure. So as I got to Fort Campbell, I just was kind of depressed. I mean, I felt like I didn't know nobody. I'm out of here. They told me your unit is about to deploy to Kosovo within a couple of months. And it just, those things just kind of unraveled me, where I kind of, you know, still kind of pick up some old habits and stuff. And thankfully, I had met my wife. We hadn't got married at that moment, but not shortly after that, she brought stability to my life, and kind of being more secure in that area than I was, kind of helped me to kind of mature in that particular area. But ultimately, it wasn't until God saved me and I became born again to where I really began to really mature and take off. I think one of the hardest things about leaving the military was, I would have to say, the fear of the unknown. You know, are you going to be able to provide for your family? Because, you know, once again, the military is marketed at you to say, hey, you got 3 hots and a cot, you got, you know, everything provided for you. And so in my case, if you're not secure going into the military, you're kind of wondering, hey, can I really make it after the military? You know, I know I got the education, and I know they talk, hey, we got education, you got benefits, but I never was one to really go to school. You know, it sounded good, but when it came time to put up at that time, I was like, am I really going to go to school? Am I really going to use this GI Bill? You know, am I really going to use the post 9/11? You know, all those things, you know. So I think really the unknown, what was I going to do? I had young kids at the time when I got out, and not really sure, even though I had a lot of skills now, I had a lot of training, had a lot more discipline, and I was actually just became born again, but there was still an insecure, did I make the right decision by ETS and at the time? So that was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's real, man. And what was your MOS in the military again?
It was Automated Logistical Specialist, AKA 92 Alpha, go Quartermaster.
That's what's up. Shout out quartermasters out there, man.
Yeah.
I was 63 Bravo light wheel mechanic, man. I worked
Oh,
in,
yeah.
so you know.
We cross bridges all the time.
Oh yeah, straight up, man. We worked with S1 and things like that, and I was in headquarters when I was at stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And but yeah, man, said a mouthful there, man. And when you look at the transition from, you know, civilian to soldier, back from soldier to civilian, it is challenging, and there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of things that we don't know, and I was kind of like, okay, I have, you know, a few $1,000s saved up for the war. And just to plug, at some point we're going to be talking about on these shows as far as finances, things like that. But when you amass a lot of money in the military, whether you're active duty now or you're looking to get out or you're looking to retire, save your money up. But look at ways to save your money, because I had a lot of money saved up when I was in Iraq. I didn't need anything, so I just kept on saving money up, but I burnt it all when I came back to the States. So I was like, you know, I got this money, I'm making it rain, I'm doing this, I'm buying that, I'm buying this car, buying clothes, shoes, but I didn't save up anything. And I wish I would have had somebody tell me to save my money before I got out, because I would have been in a better space. So I only had a few $1,000s saved up. And then I was homeless for a little bit, man. You know, and I could have went back home. I know my mom, the door's always open, so my mom would have let me come back, you know. But I was like, you know what? I told my mom and dad I'm leaving at 19. I'm not coming back to stay with you guys. I'll come back to visit, but I'm not coming back to stay. And I didn't do that, because I felt like, hey, I'm a man. I need to take care of my responsibilities. But it was hard for those months, man. And you know, shout out to, you know, those who let me stay with them for a little bit. But then I got my own place from that point. But I was so unprepared, man. And I wish I had somebody kind of, you know, sit me down and really show me what it was like as far as the transition. Because, you know, you go to, and no knock on them, but you go to the career center and things like that when you're about to ETS, and it's still not clear what you're supposed to do. They sit you down at a computer and it's kind of like, here, look for some jobs. And like, okay, but I don't know where to go, you know, and I need some more insight on what will best fit me, you know. Yeah, okay, I'm a mechanic by trade, not necessarily the greatest and not necessarily something I wanted to do, but I
Right.
found some favor there. So, but I was like, I don't really know where to go. And it made my journey harder in the workforce when I didn't, when I wasn't further prepared for that. But so kind of going to the next point, when it comes to ETS, and what would you tell a soldier that's about to get out as far as what they need to look into to prepare themselves to be successful in their transition?
Okay, so some soldiers or just service members
Servicemen.
altogether really have a know what they want to do. It's kind of like some children in childhood know what they want to do. They don't struggle with what they're going to do after high school.
Mm-hmm.
And my hat goes off to you. If you really feel like you have a career in mind, that's great. Um, um, However, there's a lot of them that really don't know what to do. So the first thing I would say is, um, it's okay to say that you don't know what you're going to do at post your military career. I would say pay attention and ask questions when you're going through as TAP, Transition Assistance Program. That's what it used to be, ACAP for the Army, but it's TAP. It's just mixed with different acronyms depending on what branch you served in. But when you're in that transition assistance program, pay attention. Because one of the main things that we do as human beings, we tend to not want to pay attention to something that we don't feel like we need. But what I've learned, and as we go into what I've learned with life and with the VA or veterans, is just because you don't need it now doesn't mean that you're going to not need it later. And oftentimes it's not always that you don't need it now. It's mainly you don't realize you need it now. See, that's the thing. If you just convince yourself that, hey, I may need this and I don't know about it, so I need to pay attention or take good notes or have a good recorder to record this so it can bring back to my remembrance. And you may not remember everything that was said, and you don't have to. It's about being able to search, to find the answer. See, that's what life is about. You can't retain everything, but you can sure write down where to find the answers or the contacts, the networking ability. So as long as you're able to network, then you're able to be pointed in the right direction. So paying attention to those TAP courses, and then making sure you have a list of all the contacts. And also, as we transition to this point, VA has a program that they started not too long ago. It's called VA Solid Start, and the Solid Start program, where you'll receive 3 calls within that first year, because the first year is usually the hardest. And a transition point, kind of helping you out, seeing where you are, if you need any assistance, checking on you. So that's a really good program if you're on your way out, to really pay attention to the Veteran Solid Start program, which helps a lot of veterans, in their transition.
That's awesome, man. And it's so important, and great points there, to keep a record and to, know who to speak to before you get out. And typically your NCO should guide you in that when it comes to you ETSing and things. But yeah, you need to do your research, and that's so important. Because even if you retire, you're still getting out at some point. So you still want to make sure you're setting yourself up as best as possible for success in that regard as well. But what would you say, Scott, is one of the common myths about VA benefits that veterans may have?
One of the common myths is that, I didn't really injure myself in the military and I don't need to really apply for VA benefits. You see that a lot. I see that a lot from the veterans who served in more so the Korean War, because you don't really see a lot of the World War II, but they are out there. But the Korean War veterans who deal with Agent Orange exposure, those guys tell me, I watched movies, but I have family members that told me, but now I hear it every day when I talk to them, is that when they were in, you dare not went to sick call. That was just the mentality. You was considered a punk if you showed that you had any kind of weaknesses, or if you were hurting, you just didn't go. And the sick call was reserved for people who were hurt in war mainly. So sometimes psychologically, you have to be deprogrammed to say, hey, it actually does hurt. My body does hurt. Or you may need to go to counseling or recognize if somebody's telling you, maybe your spouse, maybe a family member, a friend saying, hey, you do have anger issues, or you do have a general anxiety disorder. You
Mm,
do have a failure to adapt ever since you retired or got out of the military. You do have PTSD. You know, PTSD wasn't big back in the day. Sleep apnea wasn't big back in the day.
mm,
You do have this or that. So I think don't talk yourself out of filing a claim. Let them deny you. You know, oftentimes so many people talk themselves out. Well, you
mm.
know, I hear horror stories and this and that. You know what? There are horror stories. I'd be lying to you to say that there aren't horror stories. Everybody has their own experience, but
Mm.
never let someone else's experience be your experience. Don't talk yourself out of filing a claim. You need to go and be clinically diagnosed. Don't try to treat yourself and say, hey, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. No, go get professional help. Go to a doctor and see what they're saying. Ask them, could this have been tied into my military service? Do the research. Get what they call a veteran service officer in your
Mhm.
local town, a VSO, such as the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, etc. And they can help you to kind of sift through the VA lingo and help you to file a claim, do the paperwork and the legwork to really get you in the system to file a claim for comp and pen, you know?
Man, great points, man, and I definitely appreciate you because you were pivotal in me not giving up, man. You know, you called me several times just checking in on me, and it was like, hey, man, don't give up, man. God told me to call you, and it was like, don't give up, and you know, it's gonna happen when you least expect it, and how you don't expect it. Watch you win your claim. Exactly what happened, you know, and I appreciate that, bro. Like, I really meant so much because it was hard to wait, man. You know,
Yeah,
years of fighting. And when I got out in 2004, and what you said is so accurate when it comes to the soldiers, young and old, because it's like, you know, I ain't going to sick call. I'm not going to be clown for going to sick call. I'm not a sick call soldier or nothing like that, or
yeah,
sick call
yeah,
ranger or whatever, you know. And it was a big thing that people had a culture of, you know, making that look like it was negative. Now, if you sick,
mm,
if you're hurting, if you're dealing with stuff, you need to go to the sick call. You need to go to the doctors. You need to have that record to show that, hey, you know, I'm dealing with this. And, you know,
yeah,
throughout the years, you know, God sent people to encourage me to do it. I'm like, nah, man, for one, I've been out the military too long. For two, I'm good. And for three, it's just, I don't want to seem weak and things like that. But
yeah,
I was dying on the inside, though. You see what I'm saying? Like, I was really hurting, but I wanted to put on this front like I was really tougher than what I really was, and I was dealing with back issues, ringing in the ear, you know, depression, anxiety, being angry all the time, and night terrors, waking up looking for my weapon and ready to fight the world. Didn't know why, but you
yeah,
know, was like, no, I'm good. No, we're not good if you're dealing with
right.
those type of issues, and you do need help. And I was thinking about now, one story, you probably know it. The man was on the roof, and it was a flood. I believe it was on truthseeks.com, I believe. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description of this podcast episode. But the man was on the rooftop. It was a flood, and he was, you know, of course, praying to God about getting him out that situation. The
Mm,
rowboat came, the motorboat came, the helicopter came. He told all of them, "I'm good. I got faith. God's gonna save me." And then when he unfortunately drowns in the story. And then when he gets to heaven, God's like, you know, um, okay, so I sent you these things you were praying about, but you said you were just going to wait for me to save you. But I answered your prayer. You know, he questioned God about it. He was mad. He was like, why didn't you save me? No, God was like, I did send you help through,
yeah,
through the situation, right? And you know, we as believers and Christians, we do pray, we do believe God, but it doesn't mean we have less faith if we go to the doctor, if we take medicine, if we do the what we need to do to get our health in check. That's advised by the doctor and professionals and things like that, man. I mean, we have to get that out of our head when it comes to filing a claim, because you're for one, you're depriving yourself from the treatment that you need to get
yeah,
right. And for two, there's compensation on the table that is to help you do your journey as well. So it's we have to get that out of our head when it comes to filing claims and things like that. And we want to be as honest as possible when it comes to it. You want to tell, say you do get set up for a CMP, a compensation and pension exam, and you're not telling the person who's doing the exam, the doctor who's doing the exam, that everything that's going on with you. You want to tell them what you're dealing with on your worst day, and tell them, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I deal with, panic attacks and things like that. You want to be as honest as possible and truthful as possible when it comes to this, because that's what's going to help you along the journey. So kind of walk us through the process of filing a claim. And of course, we don't file claims for people. It's up to you to file your claim, but we want to share some insight on how you can successfully do so and look into it further.
All right, so remember that we're speaking to a large audience. We're speaking to potentially people that are on active duty and people that are come off of active duty already. Mm-hmm. There's three ways really to file your claim. Two ways on active duty. If you're on active duty and you're within 180 days earliest or 90 days at the latest, then you want to participate in what we call VA, the BDD, Bravo Delta Delta, Benefits Delivery at Discharge. In order to qualify for that, you have to be within that 180, 90 day. And you also have to have a copy of your service treatment records that you're going to give the BDD intake center person. And that is the fastest program when you're on active duty, because we can start to develop you as long as you're around for at least 10 to 45 days to go to a physical examinations. We try to get you a decision right when you come off active duty. So it's your responsibility to fax the VA your DD-214 to prove you're off of active duty, and that will complete your claim, and then we will adjudicate from there. So BDD claim is the common way. The other way is for people that's being or have been proposed unfit for duty, and that's called MedBoard. That claim is called IDES claim, basically Integration Disability Evaluation System claim. And that's where you go through the MedBoard process. VA examines you. However, nothing is done until you actually went before the MedBoard and have been declared unfit. See, in some cases, they may say you're fit for duty, and then we stop the whole process. Mm-hmm. But if they declare you unfit for duty, then VA will give a what is called a proposal rating, and give you a proposed rating, but nothing is final until you actually are off of active duty. That's the other way. So now the other common way is when you're off of active duty, then you have to do, the first rule of engagement is an ITF, intent to file. The moment it comes into your mind that you want to file a claim or think that you're going to file a claim, the first thing to do is do this either on our website that you put on here, va.gov. They no longer do this on e-benefits, but you do it on va.gov, and you go to the start a claim, and it'll do an automatic intent to file. You don't have to finish the claim at that night, but the intent to file would be put in. Or you can call the 800-827-1000 number, and they'll take the intent to file over the phone. What we don't do as VA workers is we don't do the claim for you. We do the intent to file for you. That you can also go get help at your local veteran service officer, and they can help you with the claim. What that intent to file does is it acts as a placeholder for the effective date, and it gives you, the veteran, 1 year from that day to actually submit the claim application. The reason why it gives 1 year is so that you may need to develop it on your end, so that you don't have to rush. You may need to gather private medical records and, buddy statements, lay statements, whatever the case may be. So many people just are so in a rush that they don't develop it. And so, by giving you that 1 year, it is for potential retroactive payment purposes. So if you submit the actual claim anytime within that 1 year, you preserve the earliest effective date possible, which is the day you told us about the intent to file.
Mm.
When we receive that application, it is in what is called the fully developed claim process, also known as FDC. That is probably the expedited way other than traditional way. What that means is when you submitted the claim, you submitted everything, all the evidence on your end.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's fully developed. If we have to develop it further, meaning if you submit more medical records or more statements, then they take it out of the fully developed and put it in the traditional or standard claim process, which is a little bit slow for obvious reasons. They got to develop it more.
Mm-hmm.
So that 1 year is really meant for you to develop it, not just for retroactive payment purposes, which everybody tends to kind of focus in on. So that is the way to submit that. You can download the 21-526EZ Echo Zulu from va.gov forms. You would just search forms, print it out. You can fax it or mail it in, or like I said, you could do it on va.gov, or you can go get help at your local veteran service officer.
Man, that's great information. And we'll look to reference it in the description of the podcast. Man, that was good. That was good. And like I said, we want to prepare, our brothers and sisters, man, to be successful when it comes to submitting these claims, because it is a process. It can take some time, but like you said, Scott, you want to develop it the best you can. And sometimes you do need to get your service records, and we'll provide a link here for that as well. Because if you get those and you comb through them, because sometimes you forget, okay, what did I go to sick call for? It should be in your medical records, and I believe you submit that form. And it could take some time, because I believe it's from St. Louis that you get the form from, or your records. That's the hub of it, right? And then they send it from that point. But it does take a little bit to get that. But you can get some information in regard to your records on it was myhealthvet, but it's now it's my myhealth.va.gov. You can now get some information if you have a premium level membership with that. But yeah, man, I mean, the process is tedious, and it does take legwork. But like you said, the VSOs in your state can help with submitting a claim, so it won't be so cumbersome or so tasking to look into how you do that. And there's tutorials, there's videos and things like that you can find on YouTube, and that can help. But ultimately, you want to talk to a veteran who's been there. You want to talk to the VSOs, because a lot of times they are veterans, and they do want to help us be successful as possible. So when it comes to working with the VA, Scott, how do you think that has impacted your thinking on the claims process to further empower veterans to successfully file a claim?
Oh, man, so major way. First of all, not just for myself, because now you have an understanding of how the whole process works. Man, I did a class, I think I was sharing with you about November for Veterans Day on Pure Partners. Shout out to Maurice and Kim Johnson, Pure Partners facilitators. They basically asked me to give a class on veterans benefits, and one of the things that I told them is that since I've been at the VA, I've been able to fortunately help so many people that didn't know, for example, that both veterans can claim children. Oftentimes we're just so scared because, like, man, that's double dipping. No, if both you and your spouse is a child, both of you can claim your children. Or if one spouse, like myself, has a child by another person, my wife can still claim her stepson. Wow. Because we still support, he's still my child biologically, and we still support her stepson. So most people don't know that both veterans could claim that. Some people didn't know. Some people don't know that if you're 30%, you can even add dependents. You'd be surprised that a lot of people don't know. Once you get to 30%, you can add dependents. People didn't know that you can add your parents, not in the same way, but if you are supporting your parents and you provide, and their income and assets are under like a certain financial threshold,
Mm-hmm.
you may be able to add your parents. People to know that you can, if you adopt a child, you can add them to your award if they're underage. A lot of people to know about helpless child. If your child is considered helpless and unable to support themselves before the age of 18, you may be able to add them to your record even after 18, and they get their own check for the rest of their lives. So it was just a myriad of things as far as claims, how to understand. One of the biggest things, Adrian, is how to understand and read and interpret a decision letter.
Come
That
on,
thing can
talk
be
about
so intimidating. The lingo, the words, when they said your claim is moot, or if it says it's been deferred. A lot of veterans come to me, what does deferred mean? They don't know the difference between now. It wasn't like this always, but now in packets, they put a notification letter, and that's usually the first few pages. And then in between, sandwich in between, you have your rights to seek further review of our decision. In other words, if you disagree with it, you could, they tell you in the decision letter, it tells you how to disagree, what form to use, how to choose a form. And then at the bottom is your narrative. Your narrative goes into the evidence they use, how they came to their decision. It goes into a narrative, and it tells you how it covers everything. But oftentimes, and actually in the top right-hand corner of the packet, in the beginning on the first page, it tells you the order of the packet. But most people don't even think to look there. The first thing they do is, was it approved or disapproved? And then obviously if it was disapproved, they automatically just go into calling VA rather than seeing why and blah, 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 this and that. So it is very important, especially, I'm gonna emphasize this, and especially in today's time, because ever since the COVID-19, veteran service officers either close altogether and put the 1-800-827-1000 on the door, and you had to call us, or they were taking stuff online by email. And so a lot of old vets, a lot of people don't do email. They had to mail it in. So basically, people that did not know how to do this on their own were now very, very frustrated because they had to call the 1-800 number. When you call the 1-800 number us, we don't really have the time to really sit down with you and go over your claim, because we're being bombarded by calls, and we try to help you, and they want to stay on the phone and go over a whole application, but it just doesn't work like that over the phone. So it behooves you to really learn for yourself as much as you possibly can, and not rely on the VSO, because we're living in a day and time where, man, you know, we all may be sheltered in place at any given time.
Right.
And you have to call that 1-800 number. You have to learn how to understand and interpret these letters. And now is the time, while we're in a time of not being sheltered in, to really absorb this knowledge from things like this podcast or VSO, if you're able to meet with them right now, just in case you're unable to in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And more great points. When it comes to the steps, and we're going to look at the, like, far as 1, do this, 2, do that. But when you say, okay, so say, you know, I tried to file a claim and I got denied. What's my next step? Like, can you kind of go over, you know, higher level overviews and things like that?
Yeah. So February the 19th, 2019, VA transitioned into a new Appeals Modernization Act. It was a pilot program at first. A lot of people have heard of it. It was the RAMP, R-A-M-P, where you could opt in. And they wanted people to opt in because they were trying to see if it was going to keep it. Well, it was that good, and they implemented it. So now when you, excuse me, anytime after February 19th and after, especially if you are denied, you have 3 appeal lanes or review lanes. So you have 3. The first one is called a supplemental claim, the VA form 20-0995. A supplemental claim basically means you were denied or you disagreed with the decision, and you're going to provide new and relevant, new keywords, new and relevant evidence. So it has to be new, has to be relevant, something that they did not just deny you on.
Right.
In order to even pick that lane, if you don't provide new and relevant evidence, or if you don't put on the form for us to get the new and relevant evidence for you, then they won't even open it. They'll just send you a letter saying you didn't provide new and relevant evidence. It's not open. The goal before the COVID-19, the goal to complete that was 120 days. The next one was a high-level review. A high-level review is a 20-0996 VA form. Basically, it's the opposite of the supplemental. You cannot provide any more evidence, nothing. You can't provide a statement or nothing. You are actually asking us to have a more experienced adjudicator or person who makes decisions, reviewer, to give an entirely new review of the claim that we just denied, that you disagreed with. And the goal to complete that is 120 days. That is done at what they call a DROC, a Decision Review Operations Center. And you also can select on the form if you want an informal telephone conference, where before they make a decision, they will call you at a specified time window that you check Eastern time. The last way is very familiar, which is VA Form 101A2, which is Notice of Disagreement. And with the Notice of Disagreement, it goes to the Board of Veterans Appeals, but before it goes, you have to tell us what you disagree about the decision that the regional office just gave you. And on that form, you have to select a review option, because within the board you have three options. You have what is called a direct review, meaning you do not want to submit any new evidence and you don't want a hearing. You can have a decision within 1 year or 365 days with the board. Or you can select what is called, you want to submit evidence, and if you submit evidence or have a hearing, it's going to obviously take longer, because now they're not really doing face-to-face hearings. They're doing telephone conference hearings or video conference hearings. And so you're still going to have to wait for that, and that will be a little bit longer. And then obviously if you submit new evidence, they have to review the new evidence. That could be a little bit longer. But those are everything under the board. That leaves your regional office. You fax that directly to DC, and it will go before a veterans law judge to determine the decision. Those are your review options.
So, so you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, there is hope outside of the denial letter, because a lot of times we get that denial letter, and I've received several, so have you, but there's hope outside of that, with the higher level review, and with looking into how to fight it, especially if you know that you are in a position that you deserve that, and because of what you're going through and what you're dealing with on a daily basis, with your issues and ailments. So when we look at the submitting a claim process, kind of want to put it into, steps, and Scott, jump in, add something that I may miss. But for one, you want to do an intent to file, which is, you could do that on the va.gov site. You can also call it in as well on the phone number there. Give me 1 second, 800-827-1000.
That's right.
You can call that to get it started there too, and that starts that process for the claim. You got that year time frame to start that whole process, to get the evidence that you need to make your claim as solid as possible when it comes to your evidence to submit it to the VA.
That's right.
From that point, you want to look at, and you can still, I believe you can still go to eBenefits to submit your claim that way. And there's videos on it, and VSOs can help. But like Scott was saying, you kind of want to do your due diligence, your own research on how to submit that through eBenefits, because you can submit a claim that way. And this is important. This is where buddy letters and nexus letters, meaning that it's a letter that ties in your condition to your military service, and those are important. So you have a primary care doctor or physician you see, you want to reach out to them, and also when it comes to getting treatment, your treatment doesn't stop once you leave the military. You know, if you're dealing
Right.
with issues and dealing with real concerns outside of the military and due to the military, and you had those concerns while you were in, and you didn't have them prior to the military, you want to do your due diligence to, go to the doctors and things like that. And there's a way to submit to where you can get that free benefit when it comes to being a veteran. I think you have to be. Do you have to be at least 0% to get that benefit, Scott?
For which one?
To get the benefit of going to a VA doctor and having that covered for free.
Well, it really depends no, not you don't have to be at least 0%. It
Okay.
really depends on what era you're in. I mean, like Korean War era, they don't get any monetary benefits, but they get to use the VA hospital for no percentage.
Okay.
Also, you really just have to apply online. Is any form that starts with a 10 or 1010 is a hospital form, and they base it upon your income.
Mm.
And that's how. So you don't have to be rated. You just have to apply, and they base it upon your income. They're going to look at your taxes. You got to send a copy of your taxes, last year taxes, if you filed, and they will determine it at that time eligibility.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
And that's important to know and to look into. But it's important to, keep the treatment going while you're outside of the military, and looking into how you can get that free benefit of going to the VA doctor, because it's helpful. But, you get that nexus letter that shows that, hey, this condition was developed while in the military and has been aggravated since being in the military to
That's
where you're
right.
at now. So you want to make sure you have those. If you don't, have it listed in your medical records, your VA medical records that shows that. And from that point, it's the waiting game. And thirdly, you want to be patient. But going back to the denial letters, if for some reason you get that and you're discouraged, don't be, because you can still file. You can do a new claim. You can look at even doing supplemental claims to things you've dealt with before. When it comes to ringing in the ears, and certain ailments can agitate certain other ailments, and you can supplement that when it comes to the claim and e-benefits. So those are all processes, but those are the three things, man. The intent to file is one. The filing the claim with the VSO or doing your own research on e-benefits to do it is two, and then being patient with the process and not giving up hope. And one more thing, Scott, I want us to kind of talk about for our folks who are 100% PNT but don't know the benefits. Can you kind of share some insight in that realm as well?
Yeah. So if you're permanent and totally disabled for VA purposes, one of the main things you want to look into is the DEA, Dependents Educational Assistance, also known as Chapter 35. Chapter 35 is an education benefit. It's through the education, not comp and pen. And you would go, once you've been made permanent and total, you would contact the education department, and basically your spouse, the veteran's spouse, and the veteran's children may be eligible to go to school and have a stipend paid directly to them. A lot of people say, well, it pays for your college. No, it's not like the Voc Rehab where they pay for your college and give you a stipend. No, they actually pay the family, the spouse and or dependents, the money, and then they have to manage the money and pay the tuition. So I think right now it's about a little over $1,200 a month. I think the spouse has a certain amount of time to use it. I think like 10 years from the date of the decision is one of them. And for children, they have until 26 to use that. Very important key note, if the children choose to use that, say they're 18 years old, because that's the earliest you can use them. If they're 18 years old and they decide to go use their Chapter 35 for college or trade school, etc., if you are carrying them as a dependent, meaning if you've added them to your dependent, you have to remove them now because it will create an overpayment. They cannot draw Chapter 35 and be your dependent at the same time. And also, once you sign them up as a veteran for Chapter 35, it removes you out the link now. That money goes directly to the account they set up, and they have to call in. They will no longer talk to you, the parent or the veteran parent. They talk directly to that child. So it's important that you teach your child independence and give them the tools they need to be able to start conducting business as their own, because the VA will treat them like that. That's one major one. The other thing is, as far as healthcare, if you do not have healthcare, or if you're looking to save for, whatever's costly or beneficial for you, now for healthcare, not necessarily for dental or for vision, but for healthcare, VA has a program called CHAMP VA. I know, Adrian, you're familiar with this program, where
Yes, sir.
eligible dependents, spouse, and children up to a certain age, I think still like 26, can use the CHAMP VA benefits for healthcare. So those are the two main ones. The other ones is property tax, and this is a state thing. This is not a VA thing. This is a state's VA benefit. Property tax and will tax or vehicle tax, such as your license plate or decals. You can possibly be exempt from either one, but it really is predicated upon your state. Here in Tennessee, you will continue to pay your, if you're permanent and total, you will continue to pay your property tax through your escrow. And then at the end of the year, they basically, the first year, they make sure that you are permanent and total, and then they send you that check back. You'll probably get it like March or April. And then your will tax, if you're permanent and total, then in the county that I'm in, instead of paying $82, your first one is free, and then every other vehicle after that you pay $30. So it's basically a $50 savings after that to get a disabled veterans tag on your car. So those are some of the biggest things. There are other things, obviously, that you don't need permanent total, but be fishing license, things like that, just for disabled veterans. But those are the main things. Also, if you're permanent total, dental care is now free to you at the VA hospital. You only get dental care unless you're permanent and total. So that is just for the veteran. Just for the veteran to go into the VA hospital and do dental care at the VA hospital, which is a big benefit as well. So those are probably like the top ones. And then from there, I would just really look at your state VA website and see what all that may apply to you at that time.
Man, I appreciate that, brother. That's, man, some gems, man. Some gems.
Yeah.
It's great information to have, and that's something that if you're dealing with a lot of issues and you feel like you need to be at that, as far as the things you've been dealing with for the past few years or year or whatever the time frame is, since you've been out the military, while you were in and now you're out and you're dealing with that, and it's getting progressively worse, and you're not at that 100% P&T permanent and total, and that's important because they can't really shift that. If you talk about that briefly when it comes to shifting, when it comes to that P&T, how important that part is?
As far as what? The difference?
Yeah, the difference there as far as the percentage.
Yeah, so basically, there's a couple of ways. So for P&T, you either have to be 100%, and a lot of veterans are 100%, but they're not P&T. And basically, in layman's terms, P&T means you have no future examinations 9 times out of 10. And it means that your disability, for VA purposes, your disabilities are considered static, STATIC. And also that means that they have no likelihood of improving. That's the key thing, meaning we don't need to do a future examination on you. They have no likelihood of improving. They're considered static, so they go ahead and make you permanent and totally disabled for VA purposes. At that time, just like Social Security, you could actually take that to Social Security and let them know that, and that may increase your chance to receive Social Security disability if you realize that you cannot work, no matter what age you are. So that's important to know as well. If you're not permanently and totally disabled, then you more than likely 9 times out of 10 have a future examination date, and they may make you P&T at that time. Some people, for most people, they may be 100%, but if you've been P&T for 10 years, or if you're a certain age, then you can actually request PNT if they haven't already made you, because you've been 100% for 10 years and you reach a certain age. Also, you could be PNT through individual unemployability. That's another way that a lot of veterans don't know. If your disabilities prevent you from holding down gainful employment, not marginal employment, because VA doesn't consider marginal employment anything. It's like odd jobs here and there. But if your disabilities prevent you from holding down gainful employment, and you have a certain percentage, 90, 80, 70, it's a mixture of it. You can find this on va.gov. You may be eligible for individual unemployability, and that means that the VA will pay you at the 100% rate, even though you're not 100%. And at the same time, they may make you permanent in total while you're on the program. And so that's something to think about as well. However, if you get approved for that program, you will not be able to make more than the poverty threshold, meaning you can't just go work. You know, like some people do, try to go get a full-time job. You can't, because they'll pull your Social Security records, and then they'll basically send you a letter at the beginning of the following year saying, hey, it was reported to us that you made over the amount, blah, 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 this and that. So that's another program to really think about, man, when it comes down to IU and permanent total that way.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. And, you know, we're going to share, once again, some websites that you can reference after this podcast. But, man, it's been a blessing, man. Your wealth of knowledge, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your heart, man, with our listeners in regard to veteran affairs and VA claims, man. I appreciate that. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave with the people as far as encouragement?
Absolutely, man. One is VA will eventually get rid of e-benefits and merge it into va.gov. So
okay, good.
The place to put in a claim is va.gov. If you do it on e-benefits, they will take you or redirect you to va.gov.
Okay.
So keep in mind with that. To really be encouraged, man, it's like anything else. We know as believers that our hope lies in our faith in Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. What I will say is you have to continue to believe. Don't let a denial letter, do not let somebody else's experience be your experience. God has charted out our own path. And while I know we all are human beings and we like to kind of feel people out and feel the system out and how other people's experiences was, but I've learned that can really be to our own detriment. Really, as a believer, we need to acknowledge the Lord and seek the Lord in all our ways. I know we're veterans, and I know that we've served, whether it's 1 year, 20 years, whatever the case may be, but I believe timing is everything. I know a friend of mine that I go to church with, she didn't apply for benefits until she was out of the military 20 years. And the only reason why she applied for it, because she was at a church conference and the Lord they was given VA classes. And after she went to this class, she had never thought about it. And she just felt led. And she thought, listen to how God, the Holy Spirit directed her. She thought she was applying for her father's benefits because her father died in war, blah, 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 this and that. And it wound up being the Lord was using it to bring her own benefits. Wow. And she went from 0 to 100% in probably like 2 years. Wow, and
that's awesome.
And has helped a lot of people because she is a person who knows how to read and do things and understand law and interpret things and does the legwork. But what I'm saying is, God will direct us, man. And I think that's it. Everything doesn't happen in the time that we think it should happen. And sometimes we think that what we're facing right now is our biggest need. Everything is our biggest need when we're facing it. We forget that last year's need was the biggest need, but now you're at a new need. And so but God doesn't see things like that. God knows exactly the timing. He knows exactly what he wants us to go through. And if we remember that God has an appointed time, that will help us in the wait.
Yes, sir.
waiting in general, but in context, waiting on the VA. When I know that God has an appointed time, the VA is not my source. The VA is only a resource. I'm going to
Come
say
on.
that again. Things are not our source. God should be our source as believers. God is a source who's able to produce resources in the earth realm. He supernaturally does it from heaven, but and through words, but and he directs it or calls fruit or to resources to come forth in the earth realm. So whether it's VA, whether it's 100%, whether it's Social Security, whether it's your job, whatever it is, it's a resource. It's a channel that God chooses to use to show forth his glory in the earth realm in our lives, and ultimately as it's being shown forth in our lives, and as we give him the glory and allocate the resources unto God in the right proper place, it brings him glory. And that will quiet our souls when we feel like we're receiving a disservice, or when we feel like something that we've earned or entitled to has not manifested yet. It's an appointed time. Everything is a time. Ecclesiastes says to everything there is a season.
Come on now.
And there's a season. And if we just remember that, then we can say, okay, if the Lord put it on my heart and my mind, and then I obeyed whatever he told me to do, whether it was apply, intensify, whatever, then I could just leave it right there and continue on with the path and the purpose that God has for me. And at the appointed time, it will find me. And so God will never allow us to miss our blessing as long as we stay in God. And that's the main thing. As long as I'm in tune with God, I'm going to be in tune with everything else.
Man, come on, bro. Take us to church, bro. Come on. Come on now.
Absolutely.
Hey, I receive
we can't separate that.
Yes, sir. I receive it, man. That's powerful, man. And man, woo. I hope y'all got that. I hope y'all got that, man. It's powerful word, man. And that's one of the things you told me, man. Just keep believing God, man. Everything comes time and season. God will work it out. Just keep believing, and God's gonna do that thing, man. And he did, man, and he does, and he will continue to do if we continue to trust and believe him. I mean, our steps are ordered, man. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep on believing that, and just don't give up, man. Don't give up. Don't give up, man. Keep putting that faith in him to make it happen, man. And then do the due diligence and walk it out from that point. Man,
absolutely.
God, it's been a pleasure, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. No problem, man. Anytime. And you have anything as far as any your social media sites or anything to give the listeners that they can follow you on or look into to find you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'm on LinkedIn. Scott Batista on LinkedIn, man. My email address is scottbatista@gmail.com. If you want to send me an email or have any questions, man, or concerns. And then, of course, my VA email is scott.batista@va.gov. Some important sites to remember is va.gov, as Adrian already said, va.gov, ebenefits.va.gov is another one, two separate benefits, VSOs. I'm also on Facebook as well. Other than that, man, that's it. Just continue to lift me up in prayer, man. And I appreciate everyone that's taking the time to listen to this podcast.
Awesome, man. Yes, sir. And thanks again for being here, man. And we'll chop it up soon, man. It was good seeing you, good talking with you, man. It's a blessing, man. So you take care, man, and we'll get up soon. All right.
All right, we'll do, man. All right, stay up.
Peace.
All right,
yes, sir. That was my brother, Scott Batista, a wealth of knowledge, an awesome man of God, sharing his heart and sharing his insight on VA claims and how to successfully file a claim and how to successfully transition from the military world to the civilian world and be successful. We just wanted to share our hearts and wanted to empower veterans, servicemen and women, active and retired, or outside of that, we just want to give you tools for success. So there's a wealth of knowledge out there. We'll share some again in the description of this podcast. But it was truthbook.com as far as that story of the man on the roof dealing with the flood, but maybe dealing with a situation where God's talking to you about your life and where you are right now. And you may be at a place where it's like, I don't understand why I'm here. And especially with everything going on in the world, but believe and know that God is still in control. He's still the author and finisher of our faith. He's still the one that is leading us down the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And he's still able to keep us during this time. And he's still able to show himself strong. So just keep believing. Don't give up the fight. Continue to do your due diligence and research and watch God do a miracle in your life. Once again, thank you for listening to Not Your Average Boss podcast, calling all veterans. You guys have been great. Appreciate you on this journey. And let's keep on believing that we can be who we are called to be. Thanks again for listening. Not Your Average Boss, signing off. Thanks again for listening. This is Adrian Hackney, Not Your Average Boss, signing off.